Hello, all. We're waiting about 10 minutes as board members come in, so we should be starting like around 7:12, 7:13. So we'll be back shortly. Hey, Tanisha, we're giving people 4 minutes, for board members who are arriving a little late, 4 to 5 minutes to start.
I'm in.
All right, thank you. We have quorum now. We'll be starting in a minute.
More, unfortunately, this one didn't imagine any of the big events. In the central suspects, police question of the part of the populated neighborhood. A couple of brothers, Daniel and Jeff.
All right, perfect. Welcome. 2024. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody celebrated their holidays with their families and loved ones. First meeting of the year. And we have quorum. So I hope everybody has the agenda available to them. And yeah, Happy New Year. As of now, um, it was great. We finished off the new year with a sense of, you know, sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties. One second. Yeah, so it was a very it was a learning experience these past 3 months. We try to structure the committee to be able to not only take on legislation, but also look for ways of being more intentional when it comes to the work the committee does. One being identifying legislation that would benefit our community, understanding that we do come from a marginalized, historically disenfranchised community means we have the responsibility of having to look into areas, look into legislations that not only benefit the community but uplift them as well. So that's a task that I feel like we've structured ourselves to be able to do moving forward. Unfortunately, I dropped the ball with sending the assemblywoman a reminder around the legislation that I feel is very important, and we've been talking for a few months now. And being that we're in the legislative sessions at the moment, something that we should really look onto, which is the false advertisement of corporations being able to label food healthy when they're really not. So I will be re-inviting her for next month, and I will do my due diligence on making sure I do the proper follow-up to be able to have a conversation around what's holding this legislation back, and as community boards, how can we not only outreach other community boards, but how can we do our due diligence of being able to do our part to be able to advocate for it. During the break, I had a great conversation with Tanisha, and we also identified some items that Tanisha Grant, being one of the committee members, around who could we invite moving forward, being that we are looking to have active participations of advocates who are much more submerged in not only policy, but in getting policy passed and legislation passed. So one of the things that we want to turn this committee into is also a space where they could come in, not only speak on their advocacy, but also how can we collaborate on further promoting those agendas forward, which go hand in hand with us, again, reiterating that we come from a historically disenfranchised community, marginalized community, and that alone has certain significance to it. So we want to make sure that we open it up, not just to constantly be talking about things, but seeing how we could also impact a legislative process. And those are my welcoming remarks. I hope everybody had time to look at the agenda. And if I could get a motion to get the agenda approved.
Motion to approve.
Motion. All right, we have Carmen motion for the agenda and Louis seconded it. Anybody opposes the current agenda as it stands? Okay, and any abstentions? So I'm assuming it's unanimous. Thank you. So now we're moving to the community connection. Well, as I reiterated, the elected official updates, we're not going to be able to have it. So I'll be tabling it for next month because I dropped the ball on doing the proper follow-up to the person we were going to get the legislative updates. So we'll be getting that next month. But for community connections, and I want to actually put on the spotlight, Tanisha, if you could talk about the organization and introduce the individuals who will be presenting today.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Happy New Year, committee. Good to see you all. So yes, in this year, like our chair said, we want to be able to collaborate and really see what advocates are out here doing. So one of the big issues for our community, and should be a big issue here at the Youth and Education Committee for Community Board 12 is class size. We know last year the state finally passed a law to reduce class size, and they have 3 years to implement that. So we thought it only right to invite the lady, the force, the advocate from the organization Class Size Matters that has been working on this for, more than a decade, at the forefront of advocating for our children's class sizes to be smaller. What happens is in disfranchised neighborhoods, overlooked neighborhoods, under-resourced neighborhoods, in our public schools, our class size tends to be higher. Why is that important? That is important because the more children a teacher has, the less attention she has for each of those children and each of their individual needs. So this is something I think that me and the chair agreed that we should, educate ourselves on. So without further ado, I will introduce Leonie Hemsen, the leader and executive director of Class Size Matters. Leonie, if we could give her privileges. I'm sure she has a presentation.
I just promoted her to panelist.
I'm sure she has a presentation, so please let her be able to give her privilege of share screen as well. Leonie Hampson, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I have a short presentation to give you, so can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. You should be able to.
It says host disabled, participant screen sharing. Okay.
Check now.
Yeah, it should be good. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we can, Leonie.
Okay, so just to go over some very basic things in the beginning, class size is very important in terms of student learning and student outcomes. It's one of only a handful of reforms that have been proven to work through rigorous evidence. Students who are in smaller classes do better in every way that can be measured: higher test scores, better grades, fewer disciplinary problems, more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to attend college and get a STEM degree. It's also very important for social emotional learning and, the connections to their teachers and their classmates. While all students benefit, the students that benefit the most are disadvantaged and minority students, who make up the majority of students in our public schools, and yet we continue to have among the largest class sizes in the state here in New York City. And then in the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit, which was started in School District 6, the state's highest court said 20 years ago that New York City students were denied their constitutional right to a sound basic education because class sizes were too large. In a survey, 86% of New York City principals said they were unable to provide a quality education because class sizes were too large. So finally, in June of 2022, the state legislature, in recognition of the fact that we were finally getting full funding from the CFE lawsuit, decided that it was about time that the city reduce class sizes as well. And this law, which capped class sizes at much lower levels, as I said, was passed in June 2022. And then in September 2022, the governor signed the bill into law, but with the provision that the phase-in, which was supposed to happen over 5 years, would start not last fall, in the fall of 22, but this fall, in the fall of 2023. And what the law holds for is that in all core academic subjects, class sizes should be limited to no more than 20 kids per class in K through 3, 23 kids in 4th through 8th grade, and 25 kids in high school classes. And each year, there's supposed to be an additional 20% of all academic classes that are capped at those levels. And the city is supposed to reduce class sizes first at the highest poverty schools. We made the cap this year, mostly because of enrollment decline. But we believe it's very unlikely that we will make the cap starting in year 2, the 40% cap, and very unlikely unless the city puts into implements specific changes in policy and procedures that we will make the caps in the years thereafter. So this is what class sizes went up citywide. You can see that it went up at all grade levels this year. And in elementary and middle schools, for the second year in a row, average class sizes went up, mainly because of budget cuts. This year, only about 37% made the caps this year versus more than 42% 2 years ago. And only 60 schools out of more than 1,500 complied with all the cap size caps this year, with a 33% decline over the last 2 years. So we also looked specifically at what was happening in District 6, which overlaps with your community board. What it shows is that class sizes, this is the very darker red and the darker blue, went from below the caps on average at 19.7 to above the cap for K through 3 at 20.3 this year. For middle schools, it went from 21.6 to 22.8, which is right below the caps. On average, that means that quite a few schools are above the cap. And for high school, it also went below the cap to above the cap this year. So this is a real problem. We also looked at what percentage of classes made the cap in District 6. It went from over 54% to about 47% in K through 3, 53% to about 48% in 4th through 8th grade, and about the same in high school at about 47%. But in general, your classes are going up. The percentage of classes making the cap is going down. So a class size working group was appointed by the chancellor last spring to come up with recommendations on how the law should be implemented. We had been pushing for that because we didn't see any real progress by the city, and we were afraid that they just wouldn't do anything. And I was a member of this working group, and we finally released our report last month, and I believe it contains a lot of effective and affordable proposals to reduce class size. These are just some of them. There's a link here, and I can also put a link in the chat to the full report, which is about 90 pages long. One of the proposals is to stop co-locating schools, including charter schools, and creating new schools if that will impair the ability of the existing schools' ability to lower class size. Adjust enrollment at nearby schools. If they're very overcrowded schools sitting right by underutilized schools, adjust their enrollment to make sure that the overcrowded schools can actually lower class size, build more schools in overcrowded communities, strengthen the teacher pipeline with a lot of specific recommendations, and provide incentives to teachers to teach in the highest need schools, and add a separate budget allocation for class size reduction, and keep the fair student funding system, which is our main funding at the school level, to provide programs for other school and classroom activities and programs. So as I mentioned, so far the DOE is not doing anything. They did release a new proposed 5-year capital plan this fall that will determine whether in our most overcrowded communities, class sizes will be able to be reduced, yet funding for new seats were cut by over $2 billion compared to the existing plan, and more than 70% of seats were completely unidentified as to borough, district, or grade level, which is an unprecedented lack of transparency in the capital plan. And all the identified projects of new schools are carried over from the current 5-year plan, so there's not a single new one added. This shows you what new capacity is funded from the last iterations, the last annual iterations of the capital plan compared to the new 5-year plan. And you can see a steady decline in the amount of money spent on new schools, construction. This is how many seats are actually to be funded in the capital plan. And you can see a steady cut in the number of new seats, which is the opposite direction of where it should be going. Obviously, especially in very overcrowded communities, you're going to need more space. And as I mentioned, the lack of transparency is different from all previous plans. And it completely leaves the public, including community boards and CECs and local elected officials, out of giving any input on the potential siting of schools. And instead it says projects will be officially listed in the plan following the identification of a suitable site and the commencement of a school facilities design process, which basically means that they don't plan to tell anyone about where they want to site schools until the process has already been done and it's irrevocable. And we think this violates 2 laws, which we quote here. The state law that created the School Construction Authority that requires the chancellor to annually prepare an educational facilities master plan, including a list of priority projects, and set forth the justification, including demographic data, documenting the need. That no longer is in the capital plan. And the class size law has a similar clause in it, which says the capital plan is supposed to specify where new schools are going to be built in order to create the additional space necessary. One of the recommendations in our plan is to adjust enrollment, as I mentioned, at nearby schools that are underutilized. This would also help the underutilized schools, which now often struggle with their budgets, which are very limited, to provide all the services and programs that students really need for a quality education. And in an October 12th town hall meeting for the mayor and the chancellor, a 5th grade student pointed out how unfair it was that some schools have very, very hefty budgets and other schools have very, very limited budgets because of the inequality in enrollment. And Deputy Chancellor Weisberg said, "This is the reality, students equal dollars. It's not the way we like to think of it, but that's the reality. If the school gets too small, you can't afford PSAL, that's sports, you can't afford enrichment, debate clubs, etc." And so they themselves admitted that, but they so far have no intention, apparently, of adjusting enrollment in this way. And we have a map online where you can take a look at your own district and sort by grade level and see the utilization percentages. The dark green are the really underutilized schools. The red ones are the overutilized schools, and you can see that some of them sit side by side. The other thing that's really going to hamper and prevent schools from lowering class size are the huge budget cuts that have been proposed by the mayor. About 600 schools got mid-year fair student funding cuts this year called adjustments. Now the mayor's proposing to cut another 547 million from the DOE budget this year, and additional budget cuts of 600 million for the next 3 years. It will be literally impossible to lower class size with cuts these large. In fact, class sizes will increase even more sharply than before. We looked at past years. Actually, the DOE has already eliminated over 4,000 full-time K-12 teachers over the last 5 years. And this is what has led to these class size increases. And the city's financial plan anticipates the cuts of thousands of more teachers over the next few years. And these are charts showing that. And yet this flies in the face of the fact that our schools are getting $1.3 billion in additional state funds that has been phased over these 3 years in order to settle the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit, as I pointed out, in which class size was a central issue, if not the central issue in the case. There are a bunch of other revenue proposals that people have put forward that could raise billions of dollars in additional funds for the city. Most all of them would take the agreement of the state, but that's something that the city and you folks might be reaching out to your state legislatures about. 2 of them relate to charter schools specifically and relate to ways in which New York City, as a school district, is treated like nowhere else in the state. For example, we in New York City comes directly out of the DOE budget, has to help pay for charter school rent, which is costing us more than $75 million a year. We are the only district in the state and the only district in the entire country that has to help pay for charter school rent if we don't give them space in public school buildings. We also are exempt from getting something called charter transition aid, which has, we're the only district in the state that doesn't get it. We've been cheated out of over $2 billion because we're exempt from charter transition aid, and that could raise another about $100 million a year if we got it in the future. And then we have a bunch of other revenue options that I can go over very quickly, or you can look at your leisure. I can send the PowerPoint to you. But one of them that would raise nearly $1 billion is raising the personal income tax on high-level earners. Right now, we don't have a very graduated income tax. So how can you help? We have a sample resolution that we are asking CECs and community boards to pass, and we have one that we can offer your community board with data specific to your district. You could also pass a resolution against further budget cuts to schools and other city agencies and in favor of these various state revenue proposals, including the 2 I mentioned regarding charter schools. You can also sign up for our newsletter and at the URL that I offer there, just to be kept up to date as to what's the latest on the class size issue and other related budgetary issues. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Let me know.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ms. Haimson.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Wow. So as you were speaking, and you were speaking on charter school where they are able to be placed, I actually forgot to mention in my welcoming remarks that next month we'll be having a charter school, an elementary school that is seeking placement inside of the radio tower. So the prior middle school that applied, the deal fell through. There was some discrepancies where they try to basically change the application real quick and say like, hey, it's the same like the same process, but it's a different school. So I'm assuming you have to start the process all over again. So they try to bypass basically saying that. So yeah, a lot of interesting ways of trying to get their agenda pushed forward. But we have a charter school that's looking to be placed um, inside of the school area within the hotel at 181st in Amsterdam. And it's an elementary school. And for me, I can't necessarily, as a chair, I try to maintain objectivity. But we also have to analyze the area and understand that within that vicinity, there's already 3 to 4 different elementary schools. And now, instead of accommodating those schools there, supposedly the state recommended them to take that spot there. So my question to you, Ms. Hameson, is who in the state determines where these charter schools could be placed, and why do they only come to us only to speak about variance changes and stuff of that nature, as opposed to directly engage on is a elementary school needed? You know what I'm saying? So I felt that was very arbitrarily done.
So there are 2 state agencies that approve and renew charter schools. That's the State Education Department, and the Board of Regents is one, and the other is SUNY and the SUNY Charter Committee. SUNY Charter Committee is, generally speaking, less responsive to communities and parents than the regents and the State Education Department. So there is a legislative bill that says the only agency that should be able to approve new charter schools and renew them is the Board of Regents and the State Education Department. However, that bill has not yet passed, but I can certainly share it with you. But in terms of location, it's basically the DOE that either decides to give them space inside a DOE public school building, which of course hampers the ability of existing schools to lower class sizes. And then if they do not get that permission from DOE, then they apply for find their own space, and are supposed to find their own space and apply for a rental subsidy. And there's so many potentially corrupt issues related to that I can go into briefly, but it's really would take a whole other presentation, because what we found is that charter schools whose buildings are owned or rented by the charter management organization then increase the rent on their own charter schools in order to get more money out of DOE, and often inflate their own rent above market value. And so they're making a lot of money off the city that way. And not only that, the DOE often finds the space for them, the rental space for them, rather than letting them look for it themselves. And what we object to is, in many communities, the public schools are very overcrowded. And instead of renting, say, an empty parochial school to alleviate the overcrowding in the district public school and allow them to lower class size, they identify these parochial schools and they hand over the parochial schools or the other available space to the charter schools instead. And so recently, there was an issue with a young women's leadership school that wanted more space, that ended up moving into the space of a transfer school on the Upper West Side. And there was an empty charter school building actually in Harlem, the Hebrew charter school, that was closing. And instead of acquiring that and giving it to Young Women's Leadership School, the chancellor said, oh, we have to save that for a charter school. So there's a lot of issues wrapped up in charter schools that I find very, very disturbing. But as in essence, we are now obligated by law either to help pay for their rent or give them space in a public school. And either one of those is unfair to the existing public schools, because if you give them space, that takes away valuable space from the public school. And if you have to pay for their rent, that takes away money from the DOE budget that we could really use for the capital plan or for staffing or for many, many other reasons. And as I said, we're the only district in the entire country that has to do this.
Can she clarify if this is for this district that has to do this?
She
or what?
means like New York
Oh, New
City.
York City.
Yeah, when she
All of
speaks
New York
districts.
City is considered a
Okay.
district in some
Yeah.
ways under the state. So when I say
Yeah.
the district, generally speaking, I mean all of New York City is the only school district in the state and in the
Yeah.
country that has to help subsidize rent for charter schools.
'Cause if I'm not mistaken, once mayoral control took place, that's when they implemented like District 6 and stuff like that. Prior to it, you had like different like community councils or something like that.
No,
I think.
they were community school boards instead
Yeah.
of CECs, but the district structure, the school district structure was just the same before
Okay.
mayoral control.
Okay, got it. So I got Tanisha, and by the way, as the chair of this committee, I would love to work on the sample resolution, and I would also, as the charter school seeking to come in next month to speak about their proposal, I would also like to pass a resolution next month on the charter school right after them. So if we could do this month, we could potentially speak on the sample resolution and see how we could get that done for this month. And next month, I would like to pass a resolution on the budget cuts, but also including the exceptions for like ways of being able to increase revenue by making sure everybody pays their fair share.
Great.
Tanisha?
Let's go, Chair. Yeah, so thank you, Leonie. You know, you are always amazing, just the way you break it down in simple terms for everybody to understand. I just want to say, I didn't want to put on record that this is how you privatize public education. You starve it of the resources that it needs to thrive, right, Leonie? Like we see it in front of our eyes all the time. So I just wanted, if you could talk a little bit on the bill that Senator Clear pushed into fruition about if a certain amount of children in a district go to charter schools, no more can be built, like in Central Harlem. Real quick.
So one of the things that unfortunate things that happened in last session is the mayor was pushing very hard and the governor was pushing hard to increase the cap on charter schools, which in New York City has been raised twice already. And we now have more than 300 charter schools. We have by far the most in the state. And so the compromise, quote unquote, was that we would get a certain number of zombie charter schools that would be allowed to be added to the number. So what does zombie charters mean? It means charters that were previously authorized and never opened, and or that opened and then closed. So I can't remember right now. I can quickly look it up how many zombie charters were allowed, but it's somewhere between 20 or 30.
It's 14.
And that's gonna,
no, it's 14. It's 14.
Was it 14? Okay,
14
it was
zombie
14.
charters.
But Senator Cleary, who's really great, wanted to make sure that none of those zombie charters would open up in Harlem, which was already super saturated with charter schools. And so as part of that legislative language to allow the zombie charters to be added, she insisted that the legislation say no more in her district, I guess. Was in Central Harlem, or I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
I believe if the district has more than 50% of its children going to charter schools in the district, then no more can be built. Because half of the children population is literally going to these charter schools. So why do you keep bringing charter schools into our community? And I said that, I wanted to talk about that real quick to pinpoint where they did this and how they did this in Central Harlem, where we know the majority of the children are Black and brown. And I don't know, I think that we should try to get the numbers up here of how many, what's the percentage of our children, Chair, that go to charter schools in our district?
I could figure out that percentage for you, but would you want the specific schools in your community board district or school district 6?
I would want all of that if you would want to give it to us.
We could give you both. We could give you both.
Thank you, my love.
Sure.
Up next we have Carmen.
Hi, Leonie. Thank you so much. This presentation was very
I can't hear.
I don't mute. You can, she should be able to.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I was saying thank you so much for this presentation. It was incredibly informative, and I'm very grateful for you giving all these details and all this information. I also have a gazillion questions, which I probably won't have a lot of time to answer. So that just encourages me to do a lot more research on some of these things. So I do hope that we get a chance to review this slide. If maybe you can forward them to the chair, that'd be really wonderful. But I wanted to ask a little bit more about the underutilized schools. What is considered an underutilized school? And my other question was going to be, do we have the data on how many schools are underutilized? But I saw that we did. So if you can just like forward that link or put it in the chat, that would be really helpful. And then could you just talk about I guess I'm not really understanding what are the hiccups and like not making them underutilized, right? Like if they're underutilized in their space, I guess it's not clear to me what's the issue of like transferring students or like getting more students into those schools. Maybe we can just shed a little bit more light on that so I can understand, because I'm like, it seems pretty clear to me. If there's space in the school, then let's make it work. I'm not getting it.
So it's pretty clear to me too, but believe it or not, that's by far the most controversial thing that the class size working group proposed. And there's a whole contingent of parents who belong to one specific organization who have started a battle cry against that proposal. And the administration itself, in the person of Deputy Chancellor Weisberg, has said that this proposal is anti-parent and anti-family. So going back to the days of Mayor Bloomberg and Chancellor Klein, they had a theory of educational improvement, that all schools would be basically like restaurants or shoe stores and would compete with each other for students. And the best schools would get all the students, and the bad schools would lose so many students that they would have to close. And that would lift all boats, eventually just sit in a system of like competition, market competition, etc. Now, it never worked under Bloomberg and Klein. And instead, what it did is create winners and losers, except it's really losers and losers, because the overcrowded schools not only don't have enough space to lower class size, often kids don't get enough time in the gym. They have to eat lunch at 10 a.m. in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There are all sorts of problems that go along with overcrowding, and the underutilized schools, as I pointed out already, don't have the budget for extracurricular enrichment programs, counselors, all sorts of things. So, but their view is that you are supposed to cater to quote unquote parent choice. And if a lot of parents are attracted to a specific school, even though if they're not zoned for the school, even if it's not even in their district, they should be allowed to send their kids there. And to the extent that enrollment caps exist, they're supposed to be as flexible as possible to inflate parent choice. And so we had to deal with these DOE officials on the class size working group who said, you know, if you limit enrollment at these really popular schools, parents will either leave the system or move out of the city. And I said, that's ridiculous, because one of the top choices of parents on the DOE's own surveys is smaller classes. And what we've seen in other states that have reduced class sizes, like California, is more parents are actually attracted into the system from charter schools and private schools because their kids will now be able to get smaller classes, and even have stopped moving out to the suburbs where the class sizes tend to be smaller. So I don't believe in this notion of parent choice, that the only thing parents want is to be able to send their kids to specific schools. But there are quite a few, I wouldn't say it's a majority of parents, it's a minority of parents, but they're very vocal and very aggressive, and they're allied with this administration that don't want those kinds of adjustments to be made at all.
I think the chancellor is like the former president of a charter school network or something.
Well, to be fair to Banks, his Eagle Academy is not a charter school network in New York City. There is, I think, one of his schools. There's a charter school in Newark, but those are actually public schools in New York City.
Oh,
And
okay.
Yes, my child goes to one.
yeah, but Weisberg, who seems to be running the show on a lot of these issues, was a top official under Bloomberg and Klein. And I can tell you that Mayor Bloomberg has written 3 different editorials, actually the same editorial, but it was published in the Washington Post, Bloomberg News, and the New York Post against the class size law, mostly, and this is how he ended it, because it would take away the space from charter schools, which he's now spending $100 million to expand in New York City and elsewhere. So for a lot of the opponents of this law, they see it as threatening charter schools, and so they're against it on because of that reason.
Yeah, because I don't want to start the charter school, public school debate because working within a school building, I do feel like there's a lot of archaic policies that the public school system has to address and bring into the modern times. But I also feel that charter schools are not abiding by the same rules that cripple public schools, which I feel makes it unfair. And this whole notion of like this colonialism, you know what I'm saying? When they enter the building, it's like educational colonialism when they enter some of these buildings because they're literally investing so much money. I always said this: start off a fund, equip the parents, and if you got so much money for charter schools, help the parents fundraise and support the schools through nonprofits that are partnered up with the schools. That's why I like the community school model, because there are always these millionaires who have nothing to do that want to donate money, places they could donate it to. I believe Carmen had a follow-up.
I had a follow-up. Well, it wasn't a follow-up question. So Tanisha, I don't know if you were going to make a comment based on exactly what we're talking about right now, then I can let you go first.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we are not against charter schools. We're against the pitting charter schools against public schools. We have seen how tragedies and things have been used in other areas in the country, like New Orleans. Katrina was used to completely privatize their school system. I also want to say that charter schools are nonprofit. If they don't make money, they close. They literally advertise to people to invest into charter schools. So it is literally a business. So I just want us to understand that. Carmen?
Thank you, Tanisha, for making that comment. Great comment. My question was, going back to your presentation, Leonie, can you talk a little bit, and this is also another thing that I'm confused about. So there's this new law that has passed, and some of these districts are not meeting their criteria. What are the consequences? Do we know of any? Are people getting fined? Like, are you aware of what consequences exist if we're not meeting the standards? I mean, if we're breaking the law. I'm just curious. I mean, I can do this research as well, but just curious to see if you know any.
Yeah. So as I said, this year we're making the 20% number. It's questionable whether we're going to make 40% next year. And Class Size Matters, along with AQE, did ask the state education department to require a corrective action plan to make sure that DOE would meet the targets in the next few years. We haven't heard back from them yet. But in the law, there is the provision that the state can at any time can ask for a corrective action plan if the city's not making the targets. And then if the city doesn't follow the mandated corrective action plan, then the state can hold back funding. It's never been done before. It's a hard reach for the state to do this. But, we're going to be advocating for that because it's really the only leverage we have. We have a little bit of other leverage, though. I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that the class size law was passed in conjunction with the mayoral control extension for 2 years. And Senator John Liu who was the prime sponsor of the class size law and also the prime mover behind extending mayoral control for another 2 years, because he's the chair of the Senate New York City Education Committee, has said they'd be looking very carefully at what the city was or was not doing in terms of class size as to whether mayoral control is going to be extended or amended this year. It lapses in June. There are hearings that are taking place right now. In a few weeks are the Manhattan hearings, I think on January 18th. I think the sign-up sheet is for Manhattan testimony in person is going to be available starting tomorrow. And I would encourage everybody to go speak. You can also submit written testimony. I can give you the links to that website, though I'm sure Tanisha has it as well. But one of the arguments that we've been given for mayoral control over the years is the following. It provides more accountability. I can tell you that I've not seen any such accountability since mayoral control was instituted 20 years ago now. Mayor Bloomberg promised to lower class sizes in the early grades, and class sizes went up. Bill de Blasio promised to lower class sizes when he ran for office. Class sizes did not go down under his administration either. Now we have a law that requires the mayor to be lowering class size, and they're doing nothing to implement the law. In fact, they're fighting it, kicking and screaming. So I don't see any accountability under mayoral control. As regards class size, there are other examples I could give as well, but I think it's an important example to look at.
Thank you so much for that. And then lastly, and thank you, Tanisha, for posting that. And then lastly, I agree with our chair that we should support some sort of resolution, and we would love to see it. I know there's a link here. I don't think that we can click it from the screen.
Yeah,
if you'd be open to just sharing it with us.
And in fact, I have a resolution that we just created with District 6 class size data in it for you guys, and also for CEC 6 that is voting on this later this month. If I email it to Tanisha right now, can you share it, Tanisha, with other people? And then you can take a look at it right now with the specific.
Hazen, if you could just share it on your screen, and then we'll engage in conversation to see if we could pass that right now.
Okay.
So if you could share the resolution in your screen.
Let me try finding it. I was just
I
sent
think
to
you should also
by
email it to Tanisha.
And email it to Tanisha as well, just so we could have a physical copy if folks want to be able to look further into it.
Yeah, I'll do that. I have one more thing that while we're waiting, I can add about the disproportion of funding going to charter schools versus public schools is part of the charters.
I would love for that to be a topic within its own, because I feel like right now, if we discuss that, we're going to open it up. And this is a great conversation that merits a meeting for itself. You know why? Because people usually have this, because let's keep it honest, like charter schools invest a lot of money in bringing in positions to be able to keep their parents organized, right? So I want to be able to have somewhat an objective conversation where we hear the other counter argument, so that we can make an objective choice, an objective decision on it, because this charter school, public school debate is very, it's not only controversial, but I feel like they're making it seem like Black and brown families truly understand, because they're getting a good education, that shouldn't be the level of education the kids should be receiving in public schools, which should be so. Because part of my own personal opinion is that and then I'm gonna go back to the archaic. The public educational system has to be able to really reinvigorate itself by coming up to date. And I feel like charter schools, what they do is they develop some sort of business model and they go with it, where charter schools are still using antiquated strategies that charter schools are making them look horribly on. So like, because I've seen teachers from both angles, and I think like, yeah, I think it's very important, but I also think it's also important to highlight the level of exploitation teachers experience in charter schools as well for a higher pay bump, you know. But like I
Okay, but
said,
when can she come back? Because then if this is happening,
no. This is a bigger debate. Like we can't get into charter school money and versus public school because this is a very not only sensitive, but it's also like it's a topic within itself. You know what I'm saying? Like today, we're gonna talk about the class sizes. We identify some future talking points that we could address at a later time because this is like Pandora's box. Once you open it up,
Yeah, I just
there's a
wanted to
lot of
make
things.
one quick point because we've done two reports
interested in
on
listening.
charter schools facility upgrades because a law was passed by the state that if charter schools do co-located charter schools do facility upgrades, the public schools that are co-located with them are supposed to get matching funds. And yet we've done two reports showing that the public schools have been shafted and denied millions of dollars in matching funds by DOE for facility upgrades. That's just the one point I wanted to make, and I can share those reports with you as well as a list of the schools that have been denied matching funds. But now I'm sharing the resolution. Oh yeah, and I'm supposed to also send it to Tanisha. Let me send it to Tanisha.
And Ms. Hameson, if we could offline, we could discuss because I do want to have that debate.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There's not enough time for tonight anyway. But
Can we also make sure that we receive the reports that she just talked about right now? So
Oh yeah,
maybe I can see them in
she's sending it
advance?
right. She's sending it right now.
Okay.
I'm going to send to Tanisha right now a copy of the resolution that's
Okay.
What
online
about
that
the
you can see.
reports that you just shared?
Yeah, you can see it on your screen.
I don't know if she heard me. Can you?
And then one of our committee members, Carmen, she's interested in the report that you just previously
Yeah,
stated
I
as
will.
well.
I'll share that as soon as this meeting is over. I'll email Tanisha, and I think I have your email as well. The
Okay.
links to the report.
And I'll send it to the committee.
Okay, so
Or Tanisha, you can send it to the committee.
Oh, I sent it to you already. Check your email.
Okay.
Chair.
All right.
okay, so here's the resolution. I don't know how you might. It's a little bit lengthy, but
I'm gonna send it to the committee now so they could.
okay. All right, great.
Tanisha got it.
So do you still want it on screen or not?
I mean, if we have it, she probably doesn't need to. She has to get off.
You don't need it?
Which one?
I
The
have
report?
it.
She's talking about
No,
the
the
report.
screen, I'm saying, since si ya se quiere salir, if you're gonna share it with all of us, we can just all pull it up and she doesn't have to share it on the screen.
I'm trying to get
So, like,
an email thread where I have all of it. That's what
Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking for. All right, so let me I'm gonna read the reso. Okay. If anybody feels that the reso reflects what what we want to recommend, then somebody could propose that we vote for it tonight. If you need more time,
Yeah.
I could bring it in. I could get the reso passed during exec. So
Not in the least because I did not receive the. Yeah.
no, I don't have the. I would need my laptop para poder hacerlo más rápido.
I'm just saying for the sake of Leonie's time, so that she's not sharing it here, either one of us should share it if she has to go.
I
for
can
us to-
stick
Okay.
around. I can stick
Okay.
around. I don't mind.
I'm gonna send it to you, Carmen. Okay, because since you're in your laptop,
Mhm.
to the Carmen Paulino 16.
Mhm.
And then whatever group all of us are in, the email, just put it there so everybody can receive it. This is a very, got all the data. There's just some slightly modifications where we would have to change Community Educational Council
Oh, yeah.
to Community Board
Sorry, I
12.
forgot about, yeah.
Oh, no, it's all right. It's perfect. And I think, I don't think nobody in the boards presented a
Well, I haven't read
resolution
it.
with so much data on
Yeah.
it.
It's probably too long. We may have to trunk it a little bit, I think, unless we're gonna, I mean, if we're gonna
I
get
feel
it
like the
passed.
whereas is address and provides a lot of like data, which is what some of these folks really look for.
I think it's a big issue and it covers everything. We've already, as individuals and as other organizations have already signed on to the resolution. It's a big issue. Everything that's in there, needs to be in there.
Yeah, everything is like, because the whereas is like the actual like argument,
Yes,
Uh,
it's the data. It's like, this is
yeah,
whereas, this law is supposed to be implemented, whereas the class sizes have went up. Like, first of all, I just want to say I appreciate you, Leonie, for doing all this work for us.
yes, for real.
We appreciate you. Leonie is the data queen. It is never questionable. I go to her for all of my numbers on class size, and with the whole community. This is one of the things that Class Size Matters, the organization, is immaculate at, and it's providing us with the data to back up everything that we say.
Yeah, because Miss Hameson, one of the things is like men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Jay-Z said that in a song, and then that's the reality, like, because a lot of it, sometimes people break it down to, oh, they're very passionate about it. It's like, no, the numbers are not talking about passions. The numbers are talking about people and how this is impacting our community. Because usually when you're an advocate, everything boils down to, oh, you're very passionate. You don't know how it works. No, because we're living it. Those are two different layers of expertise. You know what I'm saying? But I really, I just went through it. So I think
I'm still reading.
it ain't up at all.
Oh,
Get
because I
through
know,
it.
I'm like, I'd
Yeah.
like to finish reading it.
So what I could do is we could give what would you say, like 5 minutes for
Yes.
everybody? So everybody has 5 minutes to be able to read the resolution.
Mhm.
There's minor modifications, for instance, in the be it resolved that the Community Educational Council that would be replaced with Community Board 12. So I'll make those edits once I'm in a computer. But in theory, when we vote for this, we're looking at what is being said, and then we modify what's like into our voice. You know what I'm saying? So is there anything here that you disagree with? We could debate it.
No.
But in essence, we're looking at the essence of this document and being like, okay, we agree with it, we vote on it, and then do minor modifications, which put in the board in it, Community Board 12 in certain areas. That's about it.
Okay, I'm done reading.
Another minute left. If there's any edits. Yeah.
Just what she's gonna send it in.
Hmm?
She's gonna send it in.
All right, perfect. We could engage in
Thank you.
discussion. If anybody has some discussion, some remarks, anything they want to add. The only language I would change is in the be it resolved. I'm going to modify instead of CEC in District 6, changing it to Community Board 12, which is the last 2 to 3 paragraphs. Anything else? Their motion to
I motion.
is there a second?
Seconded.
Carmen seconds. Anybody opposed? Abstentions?
No abstention.
Okay, it's unanimous. So we got one,
The committee is on the online
so
answer.
we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Oh.
6, 0, 0. That's the vote. 6 voted for, 0 voted nays, and 0 abstentions. Okay, so
Thank you so much. Can I just ask a question? Does it go to the full community board now or not?
correct. So I'll present it in the executive to get their input. And then in our general meeting, it'll be one of the items that will be voted on. I believe is the last Tuesday of the month.
Mm-hmm.
The last Tuesday of the month. So we'll be voting for it at the end of the month.
Okay. Thank you so much, folks. I will also email you the PowerPoint so you can take a look at the data at your leisure. And let me know
Okay,
if you
Naomi, I'll
have,
definitely keep you updated.
Okay.
please do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And if there's anything you want me to add, because during that part of the the conversation. People like community members can't speak, but they could speak through any board member. So if there's anything you want to add the day of, feel free to do so.
And I also put my email in the chat in case anybody has any follow-up questions or wants to find out more about any of these issues. Thank you so much. And looking
Yeah.
forward to also talking more deeply about charter schools in the future.
Correct, because I feel like that's something that we have to engage on that conversation because, yeah. Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to committee business. As far as committee business next month, we have a charter school who submitted an application to take up the space in Radio Hotel. They will be presenting, their principal will be coming in next month to present about placing an elementary in the building. Start gathering your thoughts. Part of the thoughts that I saw there is when you put elementary school, you understand a lot of busing, a lot of movement happening. And this is an area that is very, very, you're talking about a bus street where nobody could park on Audubon to Amsterdam. And then you got hotels. There's a lot of movement happening there. So I encourage everybody to do their due diligence as we'll be engaging in a conversation about that next month. And then, yeah, so that'll be happening next meeting. So we'll be having the principal over here answering any questions and giving their presentations on the elementary school. Community partners, if
And I'm
there's
sorry, this is for new.
yes, so previously,
Charter school.
yeah, previously we had a school in the square. The deal fell through. That was, I believe, prior to me. I believe that was prior to me when School in the Square came for.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so I became chair after like 2 meetings after that. So they basically were looking to get a certain
Guidance on what their steps are to.
and that they were coming into the hotel but then that deal fell through. What I find very interesting is how Radio Hotel basically tried to justify making it seem like it was the same application. And the previous application was for a high school, which makes sense in a place that commutes so much. Now they're talking about placing an elementary school there, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elementary school within a 3-block radius. So that's something to take into consideration as everybody does their due diligence.
Tanisha, what is AQE?
Alliance for Quality Education. It's a statewide organization that does a lot of advocacy around education. They'll be coming in next month to speak on, Tanisha, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be on the COVID money is about to expire and the impact that's going to have in our district.
Absolutely. There are a lot of educational programs. We're talking about Summer Rising. We're talking about pre-K, 3K. We're talking about psychologists. We're talking about nurses, y'all. Do we understand that they are outsourcing a lot of nurses? And if the nurse is not a DOE nurse, then they can't go into our children's records. They can't see what's wrong with them. They can't administer medicine or anything. And a lot of our schools have it. So DOE, Alliance for Quality Education, basically going to come talk to us about the campaign for fiscal equity that was started in our community by the now Senator Robert Jackson and peoples and organizations, and where we are today, what it looks like that we got that money and how it looks now. So they're going to do a little presentation as well.
Let's see if we could send also Senator Jackson, because I believe he's part of the educational committee, if I'm not mistaken, Tanisha.
Yes, he is.
We should come and invite him for next month for the elected official updates to see what legislations we should have in our radar.
Yes. We should also try to get like John Liu here, just because he's the educational chair.
For the assembly.
In the Senate.
Oh, okay.
John Liu, Senator, yeah. Both him and Robert Jackson are senators.
Okay.
If we could have him, bring him with him.
Who would be the assembly equivalent?
The assembly is Linda Linda somebody. I know who she is though.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see, Tanisha. Let's see how we can invite these folks to come in to give us some like in the elected official updates. So that could be like legislation we should have in our radar type stuff.
Yes, Robert Jackson is a big advocate for education. He is one of our warriors.
Okay, cool. Community partner updates. If any of our community partners are here and would like to provide some update, now's the time. We have Arlene Rodriguez Martinez. I believe she's from Literacy. Oh no, that's Jazz Power. Hey Arlene, how's it going?
Hello, good evening, everybody. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation tonight. I am Arlene Rodriguez, Program Manager with Jazz Power Initiative. We are a nonprofit organization that's locally based here in Inwood that looks to transform lives through jazz arts education and also community performance. The program that I want to talk about today and tonight is our open auditions that are coming up January 18th and February 8th. These open auditions are the first step to get into our spring performance program. That's an after-school program, a 12-week immersive experience in jazz singing, theater, and movement, where we train the youth in these 3 different disciplines. So it's quite a bargain because you get in one site, in one place, 3 training in different disciplines like singing, theater, and movement. The best thing is that is led by renowned teaching artist, Dr. Eli Jamin, which is the artistic and managing director of Jazz Power, Kenan Jejekwe, and also the great Miss Antoinette Montague. I want to highlight that both the auditions and the spring program are totally free. I think this is just a great resource for our community where you don't have to take a train downtown to get access to high quality programming for the kids, for our kids. You can stay local, you can stay here uptown and still have a great arts education experience. As we've talked very recently, the schools have been suffering from a lot of cuts, including arts programs, music programs. So I think this is a great way, as you said, led of leaning into each other for support and community work together. If you know of any schools that might benefit from this program, or if you yourself have any youth that is interested on continuing exploring their arts desires and skills, please don't hesitate on reaching out. I'll add my information in the chat and also the information of the program and open auditions. And also the 12-week program will be held in Holy Trinity Church in Inwood. That's here in 20 Cummins near Dykeman. So again, super hyper local, a great opportunity to keep things in our neighborhood, within the families, where you can feel safe if we have to have our kids commute to any place. At least they're in the neighborhood and know where they're going. What else? Yes, a free program. Let me share also the information here in the chat. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. Because I remember I had told you that I was gonna ask one of the principals I knew if they were pero towards the end of the year, it wasn't COVID. I got the flu and it knocked me out for like 2 to 3 weeks. You know, so I will do my due diligence. You see, and if you could do me a favor, I'm gonna reply in the chat. Just email me at the email I sent you, just so I could forward it to some of the principals that I know.
Perfect. Sounds great. Yes, we We also do performance assemblies where we visit the schools and do a 45-minute show presentation, a sample of what kids, will be learning in the program. So that goes from knowing the difference from head voice to chest voice, to proper breathing, to be able to carry out a song. Then in these assemblies, we also do like a small snippet of a song, and a group goes with Eli where they work on a song, and then another group goes with our theater director, Kenna, and they put up a little bit of a theater piece. And then at the end of the assembly, we gather again and present what we worked on. Normally these assemblies it's a full-on show. So we have a pianist, a bassist, a drummer, and also a singer. So it is also a very nice way of getting a little spark in the schools, at least for an hour, for a performance, and engaging students and their brain and their connection in a new way, supported by music.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Arlene.
Thank you guys
I
so
sent you
much.
my email there. Just send me an email whenever you get a chance.
Yes, will do. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Have
You
a good
too.
night.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New
Is
Year.
there anybody else, any of our community partners that would like to provide an update or add something to the conversation? Going once, twice. All right, perfect. So we're in the old business, new business announcements, adjournment. So basically, again, I'll reiterate, next month we have 2 guests, ideally 3. I'm gonna reach out to State Assemblywoman Karine Reyes again and Senator Bailey to be able to speak on the bill. Followed by AQE is going to do a presentation on COVID funding and basically that funding coming to an end and the impact that's going to have in our community. And the third is the principal from the charter school. They're currently in the Bronx and they're looking to create an elementary school here in Washington Heights. So that's going to be the conversation next month. That is all the business for today. Is there a motion?
To adjourn?
Yes.
Yes.
Second, all in favor, oppose, abstentions, unanimous. Thank you all have a good night and Happy New Year.
Great meeting, y'all. Okay, let's keep it up. Started
Mhm.
January hard.
Started hard, right?
Great,
It's like
great job here.
and they're gonna look
Everybody
at this
else.
video and be like, look at these crazy people, man.
Just trying
We get
to,
it together when we need to get it together, and that's what matters.
Yeah, that's a fact. All right, see y'all next
All
month.
right, y'all.
Everyone, great to see you all.